I'd like to speak on that prompt. I know she talks. um, Hi, can everybody hear me? Okay, yeah, okay. Um, Hi, everybody. You all know Carrie. Carrie, you want to pop in here? Um, Carrie was nice enough to step up and, sponsor, help me out. One of the reasons we're out on my patio in the mosquitoes is so we can keep our good social distance going on. Hello, my name is Jamie. Some of you already know that. I'm an alcoholic. I'm assuming you know that too. That's the price of our exclusive club here, hell of a virtual happy hour we've got going on tonight. A couple things you need to know about me. Number one, smartass is my default setting, so I don't want to sound flippant or disrespectful. It's what I do when I'm scared. Two, I'm scared. I'm scared to be here. I'm scared to not be here. And no, I really want to thank all of you for just letting me sit back and watch and absorb over the past couple of months, especially Brother Karis. I really appreciate it. I want to make a joke about communion wine, but I'm sure you've heard every variation of it already. I've been looking for a group that I felt like I could be really, truthful about what I've been struggling with. And, I don't know if I'm ready to talk, but I can really feel my demons closing back in on me, literally. And I can't keep carrying this by myself. So here I go. Here I go. Here I go. Last week when we were meeting in person, which, by the way, I so appreciate. I really needed to get out, and I have some old injuries in my lungs, so the fact that all of you, kept your distance and wore your masks, I just want to thank you so much for that. Those of you who are there remember that Dale Tucker was talking about the dreams he's been having since he got back from Afghanistan, how he is, having troubles knowing if he is seeing what he's actually seeing, how he's dealing with that brand new stutter he has that ends in his mouth but starts in his brain as it trips over itself, trying to figure out if what is before him is actually before him. I'll be honest, I honestly couldn't quite figure out what the hell he was talking about, but I needed to hear him out. I needed to know. And that's why we didn't join y'all for takeout tacos that night. Sorry to squash any rumors of a scandalous affair, even though I'm a sucker for guys with a stutter. Every story is so suspenseful. Dale laughed at that, by the way, and I don't see him on the call tonight. I wish he was here. He gave me so much encouragement and coffee over the past couple of weeks. I hope he's okay. Okay, my origin story, how I got to hear talk, the anti-hero's journey. Okay, listen, I want all of you to know that, first of all, I admire how brave and honest and blunt all of you have been. And I need you to know that I am being truthful, and I would never disrespect the trust that has been built in this space. In spite of my smart ass mouth, I wouldn't break that. And we all have our reasons for drinking. Something haunts us all. And I'm not an attention seeker. I think you've picked up on that. I've had enough attention. And I know how all this is going to sound, but please just stay with me here. Okay. I didn't really start drinking heavily until I was in my late 20s. Uh, my dad was an alcoholic, and I saw what it did. I remember one time when I was a kid, we were all in the backyard at the house, and my mom, who was raised Southern Baptist, by the way, so the only drink she has ever had in her life was a cocktail on their honeymoon. She stepped in a pile of vomit that had been covered up with leaves. And once she pieced together that it was drunk puke, she just laid into my dad, telling him that he was lying last night when he said he wasn't drunk, and that she could smell the alcohol on him, and, just spitting venom. And my dad just took it, just stood there and took it. And she just verbally piled and piled and piled on top of him. And when she finally stopped yelling and stormed back into the house, dramatically hobbling and carrying the puke shoe in her hand, my dad walked over to the ice chest with his little plastic cup. We had just gotten back from fishing, so the ice chest was still in the front of the boat. And he put a couple of ice cubes in that little cup. Um, they were really dense ice cubes. They're kind of wedge shaped. And then he walked around to the back of the boat, and he pulled out a bottle of Southern Comfort that was stashed between the fuel tanks and the outboard motor. Now, I don't think I'm ever going to lose the sound of those ice cubes and that little bit of fluid just clattering against the walls of that cup. And 8-year-old me didn't want any part of that. The puke, the yelling, the shame, the Southern Comfort, didn't want it. So as I got older, never really did those, sneaking a drink behind the bleachers in high school thing. I even took pride in the fact that I didn't have my first drink until I was of legal age. And then at that point, I would have a drink at a party just to fit in. That was it. I preferred ice cream, a lot of ice cream. But when I was 27, I had an event. I'm not sure what else to call it. I had a crew of friends that I hung out with. We were all about the same age, and we had met working for a pittance at an H&R Block. We called work the Island of Misfit Accountants. And we would all hang out on the weekends and, bond over board games, just being goofs. And then one night we were talking, and we realized that none of us were, rowdy in high school. We were all the good kids. We never did the milestones that you see portrayed in films, like sneaking peach schnapps into the movie theater, or spin the bottle, or, playing hooky from school. So we made a plan that we would save up all of our overtime pay from tax season and find a way to do all that stupid shit you were supposed to do in high school. So that summer, it was in June, we rented a tiny cabin way out in the woods. And we drove out with a trunk full of liquor and mixers and fishing gear and some knives and a machete and an archery setup and a bunch of makeup and condoms. And we justified it as a skills trade weekend. I was going to teach everybody how to fish. Dwayne was going to show us how to whittle and sharpen blades. Remy was dealing with the archery range. And Luke and Julie were going to give us all makeovers. And it was We didn't have cell phone reception. There was no computer access, no neighbors. It was just a bunch of adults out in the woods pretending like we were at preteen summer camp with booze and sex. On the way out there, we were joking that it was the perfect setup for a horror movie, and we had to make doubly sure that none of us are virgins. Now, with all that joking, we should have known better. 4 days later, I stumbled into a live bait and sandwich shop, half dead and covered in blood. There was a patch of scalp on the very top of my head that was nearly removed by a canine tooth. I had a burn, you can see it, on my forehead where it looked like I had passed out on loose coal from the fire pit. My ribs on my right side were all crushed. Shards of bone were lodged into my lung, my chest filling up with fluid. There were lacerations on my back from claws. My left breast was almost removed by a paw swipe, and my left Achilles tendon was 80% torn from another bite. And I don't remember much of this, except that I was very cold and my right hand was plastered below my nearly absent tit, holding in a bulge of large intestine that was sticking out through a place where a stray claw had torn open a hole in my abdomen. They told me when I stumbled into the bait shop that it looked like I was holding out my left hand like I was, catching myself in a perpetual fall. And I remember the burn. I do remember that. Yeah, that was me. It got some newspaper coverage. Some of you may have read about it. From the looks on your faces, it looked like some of you did. Unprecedented attack, 4 dead. Scientists in the area had never seen mountain lions work as a pair. We were all outside around the fire pit, middle of the day, making a ton of noise, drunk enough to have nearly blacked out, according to the toxicology reports. And I was the one that survived, the one that got away, the brave woman that killed her attackers with nothing but a freshly sharpened machete and fire. The lions were burned to almost nothing. And investigators figured that I was saved by an extreme adrenaline response fueled by the alcohol. I used to say that cocktail saved my life. Reporters called it a real life horror movie. And that's when I really started drinking. When I got out of the hospital, $42,000, by the way, I will never own a new house or a new car or a house at all because of that fucking hospital bill. My parents took me back in. We put all my stuff in storage and they made a space for me in the back room where my mom keeps all the magazines she's bought since 1971. And it was over 2 years before I could move out again. It was really hard on my dad, a lot of stress. You can guess how he dealt with that. Every day, my mom reminded me of how hard it was on her to live through this, how she was sick with worry and could barely do anything, and how if I had not gone out into the woods that day, that none of this would have happened, and it was all my fault. And you can guess how I dealt with that. My dad and I would sneak out to his tool shed where he kept a little refrigerator full of ice. And We were basically hiding from my mom, but we called it Southern comforting. I am always in such pain from my injuries. I also called it taking my medicine. After the event, when I was coherent, cops started visiting me on a regular basis, to the point that we even became caring friends. I even dated one of them for a while before they could lose the veil of secrecy. I want to go back and talk about something that Dale was talking about. When we went to the, not for tacos, but we went to the other Mexican restaurant that night, sitting on the patio having drinks, just soda water, I swear. Dale, and I don't think he'll mind me telling you this, Dale started talking about veils. Dale started talking about veils. Like, you know, wedding dress, magic genie, Salome's Dance of the Seven, those kind of veils. And what he was saying, and I'm paraphrasing here, is that veils are useless for hiding a thing, concealing a thing. We can still see that it's there. What they are like is more like fishing nets. They keep things ever so contained and separated. And we all have our veils. Like in society, it's almost an expected dress code, usually figuratively, to wear them. We'll wear them in public, at work, in relationships, in confessions, and how we draw our conclusions about things. They keep us ever so separated and shielded so that nobody is overwhelmed about what all is inside us. And it keeps us protected in a way. But it takes a lot of energy and a lot of strength to keep those veils in place, to keep them up. And maybe that's why the Dance of the Seven Veils was seen as so scandalous, is because when they're all gone, there's nothing to protect people from everything that lives inside of you. You are laid bare and vulnerable on the altar. But, what he was talking about was that what is difficult is understanding which side of the veil a thing is on. So, okay, for example, you go to a Renaissance festival and some lusty, swollen, yeasty guy goes tottering up to the belly dancing stage and just reaches out and swipes the leg of one of the belly dancers mid-step. Now she's wearing this chiffon, you know, covering her legs. So he didn't technically make contact with her leg, but his lust was felt. She could feel his heat. She could feel his touch on her leg. So what protects her and what does not? What has touched her and what has not? That night when she goes home and showers and can't wash off the feeling of that man's touch, she's changed, but did the change come from outside of the veil or inside of the veil? I was talking about the cops. They were visiting me. Each time they would visit me, they would ask a bunch of questions. Each visit was full of admiration and pity and, you know, questions. They would say, "Oh, what you lived through took so much courage. It must be difficult being the only one that walked away. Do you remember any more details? Can we ask you some questions? You realize this is to protect you. They informed me that there were some aspects of the scene that didn't fit in. They couldn't figure out how I set the cats ablaze and how the fire got so hot that there was almost no flesh left on their bones. They couldn't figure out how I had sworn that I had been lost in the woods for 3 days when the coroner concluded that the victims were dead less than 12 hours before I stumbled into that bait shop. They found trails of this substance that looked like crude oil or tar just all throughout the crime scene. And they said, did I know what it was? Did I know how? Did I know how all this stuff got here? And, you know, every time my answer was, I don't know. But my brain would latch on to any little detail that I could remember, just, you know, going through it, playing it over and over again with each visit from the cops and each backhanded comment from my mom about how terrible her life had become. And each time I saw my dad go out to the shed for Southern Comforting, just the loop of guilt, wondering what more could I have done? Why was I the one that left alive? Why didn't it take me? Why was I lying to the cops? Because I was lying to the cops. Not lying so much as omitting. 4 human corpses at the scene, 2 feline corpses, 1 survivor, 7 people at the scene. There was an 8th being. The only thing I absolutely remember about the event is they. And I don't mean like a pronoun, like he, she, them. It was a they, this dark plurality that moved as one. I saw they. We were all sitting around the fire pit. We had just, you know, put away our whittling and turned to drinking. You know, we put our knives off to the side so that we wouldn't have a drunken accident, you know, wouldn't get hurt. And a couple amaretto hours later, I leaned back in my chair and I had a view past the cabin. And at the edge of the clearing near the tree line, I caught sight of a movement. And have you ever seen something that can't be seen? Like there is this void that your eyes can't see, not in the spectrum of cones and rods, but you can deeper in know and track the shape of it. I looked and this shape, I saw it startle, you know, like it was surprised that I was seeing and perceiving it. And then they stepped out of the trees and it stood still and gazed at me. And I saw it. I felt they smile. And it wasn't an unkind smile, it was genuine. But I've seen people look upon a pet or a child that they don't despise but have absolutely no affection for. It was like that. And they started walking towards me, and they's approach absorbed all of my attention, held it, kept it. And I couldn't see anything except very peripheral world. And I had a vague awareness of me standing up very slowly and, my chair falling over and my friend saying, "Are you okay? What's wrong? What are you looking at?" But none of that was they. They trailed closer to me until they was all that I could see. And they was like cornstarch and water. If you've ever mixed those together, you end up with something that's not a solid or a liquid. It breaks and it flows and it drips and it reforms. They was like that, except they's constitution was absence. At some point, the lions showed up. I had a vague awareness of screams, both from the big cats and from my friends. I could almost smell blood and shit, but they held all of my senses. And I knew, like I knew they's non-existent face, I knew that they held thrall over the cats, could call them off, could cease the gore, but they did not. And at some point, it grew silent beyond the nothing before me. It grew still, and they walked, oozed around me and behind me and eased up against me like only the most intimate of encounters do. And my eyes were looking forward again and seeing the world. And the lions were stuck still right in front of me, and I gasped because they were so beautiful. They were chiseled and muscular and taut with potential energy. And the gold of their coats and the blood of their carnage blended together perfectly to where they had a sheen of rose gold. And as I looked at them, they looked straight through me, eyes locked on they, awaiting permission to turn kinetic. And I swear, the part of my brain that untangles sound heard a chuckle, lusty and bowels deep and velvet, and they entered me like stepping into a bath, but I was the water, warm and fluid, and I fell into the state of suspension, like the edge of a sneeze or the middle of a tickle, or just short of the crest of orgasm. I became omnipresent, lost in the moment of the now, in this moment, in this moment, and in this moment. Here were the lions in action. Here was a vice of teeth on my skull. Here was the handle of a machete in my hand. Here was a crack deep inside. Here was the taste of copper in my mouth. Here was heat. Here was air in a space that had been closed before. Here was they once again in front of my face. Here was the return of awareness of pain in my body. Here was the return of perception of past and present. So I guess I'm not really lying when I say I don't know what happened or how I did what I did. And how am I supposed to explain to a beat cop that my burn was caused by some dark plurality of nothingness extending what could best be described as a hand on my forehead and drawing forth some sort of nurturance from me like a baby on a tit or a mosquito, only to release me into the wood, broken and shivering from the suspension. I mean, who is going to even try to understand something like that, not judge me and just listen? Who could I tell? I told my dad. It was a couple of years after I had moved out. I had gotten an apartment and an at-home accounting job that paid me just enough to keep my apartment clean and my stomach full and the liquor cabinet stocked. And I could lose a day hungover here and there because I could plow through 2 days of work in one sitting to make up for lost time. Perfect job. I could, be too drunk to feel guilty and be too busy to think about what can be changed. Can't be changed. It was Easter Sunday dinner. I had gone over to my parents' house, and my mom lit into my dad and me from the start, saying she could smell the alcohol on us, how we did this all to make ourselves miserable, how we were drunk. And my dad and I figured, hell, if we're going to get blamed for it regardless, we might as well go get drunk. So we went out to the shed for some Southern comforting. And we were just talking about everything from what trees were being cut down to build the new grocery store to why did they even get married in the first place. And my dad mentioned that the scar on my forehead was looking better. And it just all fell out of me. The Rosegold lions, the suspension, the guilt that if I had never seen they, maybe none of this would have happened. And he listened and he cried quietly. Maybe for what happened, maybe because he could never understand what happened. Maybe just for what we had all become. And we hugged, something we never did. And I just closed my eyes and absorbed his love. And when I opened my eyes, over his shoulder, a darkness was smiling at me, and my forehead scar filled with white fire. And I pushed away from my dad and I staggered out of the building and I threw up and I covered it with leaves and I passed out in a plastic chair by the pecan tree. My mom found us 2 hours later, me half awake and covered in leafy puke, and my dad unresponsive. The doctor said the alcohol had caught up with him, that his heart just stopped. I knew that wasn't all of it. It was something I said. I brought they. I had stopped drinking for a little while. One of the cops that responded to the call for my dad was the guy that I dated for a couple of months. And we moved in together, made each other happy. He helped me get sober. I helped him get a teaching certificate so he could quit the force and teach high school. We went camping for our 5th anniversary. He set up the tent and I went to catch some fish. He started the cooking fire. I returned with my catch. Caught a sight of movement behind the tent. I felt like somebody's pet or child that was regarded with no affection. My head filled with fire, and I closed my eyes and I started screaming, "Craig, we have to leave now." And we left everything, climbed into the truck, and drove home. Craig asked me what happened. I didn't tell him. I told him nothing. I didn't talk to him for 3 days. He came home from classes to find me passed out in the garage next to a bottle of antifreeze I had been drinking. The nurses gave me alcohol at the emergency room to counteract the poison. I gave myself alcohol home to counteract everything else. I said, Craig, you have to leave now. And he left everything, climbed into his truck and drove away. That's when I moved out here to get away from the absence of Craig and my ever-present mother. I do my job, I meet with friends, I climb on the wagon, I start to think too much, I worry about my friends, I fall off the wagon, I push away my friends, and I don't see my friends get destroyed. The longest relationship I've had is with the bottle. And now I'm just tired. My body hurts so much and I can't keep up these veils anymore. Last week when Dale was talking about his dreams, about the baby that had wandered into his crossfire, about how it spills over from his days and into his life so often that he can't even look at his own child because all he sees is the bloody baby with the big brown eyes standing in front of him. I saw the child. He was talking and it was standing there beside him, glowing like a jar of fireflies, its hair in luminescent ringlets. And it was stock still and staring straight through him at a dark plurality, not solid, not liquid, issuing forth from its faceless face a smile. When we went to talk that night, I told Dale about the child. I told him I saw his burden there on his side of the veil with her golden skin so evenly covered with the blood that she looked rose gold, her tiny hand on his knee, supporting herself, steadying her standing. And Dale cried. He sobbed into his hands, trying to cover his tears. And I begged him, I told him that he has to work hard to keep up that last veil. He cannot let it slip, to keep up the most important veil, to not worry about what people think about you, if they think about you as, weak and naked, because they don't know how hard you are working to keep that veil up. So cling to your wife and cling to your child and cling to those that know you and understand you, and let them make the cloth of your veil stronger to help keep it in place, because you cannot let that darkness in. And if it does, if it sees you, it's in, and it will never let you go. And he stood up and we hugged innocently, like litter mates in, pile of puppies hugging. His hands around my waist and my hands over his shoulders, and my eyes looking straight into they. And I did not tell him that they had followed him all the way from our spaced out circle of chairs to the coffee station, out the rec center doors, to the patio where we were drinking, leaving a spotty plasma trail of darkness behind him. And that they was standing there, smiling, gazing on us, longing and waiting to be a third in our embrace. I didn't tell him. I want to know he's okay. I hope he's okay, because I didn't tell him to keep him safe. I didn't. Oh God. Oh God, oh fuck, oh Carrie, oh shit, I have said, oh fuck, I have said too much. Oh my God, I have drug all of you into this and I didn't mean to. I'm just so fucking tired. We're all tired. And my name is Jamie and I am an alcoholic. And I am cursed with darkness, and I didn't want to bring you into this, but I am so tired, and I can't keep doing this by myself. Please, for the love of God, help me, help me.
Jamie, are you okay? What do you see? Jamie, Jamie! Oh my God!